So I hear you like, what is this? um, it's Labubu Park, obviously. Like, what else would it be? Um, I just I just had an idea, and I wanted to see if I could do it. So this is very different to the usual kind of build. I'm not sure if we could even really call this a build, but it's a bit more like a speed paint. You know, like you can watch speed paintings in Photoshop, except it's The Sims. So I'm not sure if this one's gonna land very well. If people are gonna want to watch something like this in The Sims, but here we go. We're gonna do it. I'm gonna try it, and so yeah, it's a bit like a speed painting, and I've started off here with a little bit of a grid to make this easier for me to draw these Labubu dolls. And if you don't know what a Labubu doll is, well, neither did I until quite recently, where my friend informed me that there are these dolls that they look like little sort of cute evil gremlin things from they're made in China, I think, and they're just like blowing up. Like celebrities have them, and my friend has been in queues. Was in queues for days, like getting up early to go in queues online to try and order some, which I mean, I wouldn't do that, but there we go. And yeah, so I was trying to think of something to draw, to try this, where I'm basically just like, can I make this top-down drawing sort of thing using gardens and stuff? And my friend kept talking about Labubus constantly, and then it came in my head, you know what? I'm just gonna draw some Labubu dolls. And so here we are. I found a picture online, and I'm sort of just recreating it, but using the terrain tools to draw an outline first. And I sort of did this similarly to how I used to paint in Photoshop, you know, before AI made that completely obsolete. So I'm doing an outline first, and then I'm going to start blocking in some colors here with some other terrain paints. And initially, I wasn't sure if I was going to paint the whole thing using the terrain paints and blending and stuff. I will do a little bit of that on the faces, but for the rest of them, I ended up picking out some plants to get this sort of like fluffy fur texture effect thing. And you can see I'm doing a little bit of shading now. I'm just blocking in where the nose is going to be. But the reason why I'm calling this part the softscape, where I'm using all of these terrain tool paints, because it looks a bit airy, a little bit soft. The lines aren't particularly neat. And then we're going to move on and do what I decided was the hardscape. So you can see I've now got out some like actual solid objects that I'm going to use to make this look like it has some like harder lines in it. And the first one's this fence. And I was doing this for the mouth because originally at this stage in the build, I thought the shadow on this fence would be enough to look like the mouth. Eventually I do darken that up a bit. But I'm going to use some rocks to do the eyes. I did originally think, you know, maybe I could keep the eyes with the terrain paint. But when you zoom in, it's just like, it's too jank. So I wanted to neat it up, bolden it up, and it already looks miles better. I used another rock that's slightly taller just to get those white highlights. And then this thing I'm using right now to create these teeth, because they're these cute evil, like they can bite you, I don't know. But I'm using, oh, what is it? It's just called like a floor rock or something. It's in the pool objects category. And I think it's from Spa Day. That's all I can say about it. Honestly, I'd almost like never even used this item before, but I thought I was specifically looking for things that could look like just block color items to do this. And I found that in the pool category, and I was like, you know what? I'm probably going to save that and use that in other things as well. So we're going to use the same one to just outline the eyes here, sizing them up and down, obviously moving things around with the Alt key. It's just me placing the same object over and over again. Welcome back. If you're used to me doing that, welcome back. Yeah, we're doing it again. But yeah, this is not a build. This is just a speed paint, but it's going to be a park. So once I've actually finished these, I will add some park objects, but because that's not really the point of this video, and it was more like the speed paint aspect, I will just skip that bit and we'll look at them at the end. But I also did want this to be functional. So I will say, typically, well, not typically, but I have never uploaded anything to the gallery because I normally use CC. So I upload my stuff. If you can hear a baby crying in the background, well, that's the outdoors. I'm not responsible for that. Because I use a lot of CC. So I don't want people downloading things from the gallery and then being like, why is everything missing? So I normally use the Sims file share. However, this does not have CC in it. So I'm going to try and upload this to the gallery. I make it sound so hard, don't I? It's quite easy. I will upload this to the gallery and then seeing how that goes. Because another reason I haven't uploaded to the gallery very much is just because I'm not that great at having a lot of attention. So by uploading to the tray file thing, I've been able to keep everything like just tied to this YouTube channel and like not anywhere else. Whereas if I do it in the gallery, I feel like I'm extending my bubble a little bit. But so I'm going to see how that goes, and then I might do more builds in the future that are non-CC ones or more limited CC ones and upload that to the gallery. I'm going to see how it goes. Anyway, that's the point. This will be on the gallery. So my gallery ID I will put in the description. But yes, we're using these pink flowers. And originally I decided to just do this in green because I figured there's more green flowers. But one of these Labubus in this original picture was actually pink. And then I found these pink ones. So I thought, you know what, I'm going to give it a go. So I got these pink ones out. And the only issue was I wanted to sort of do shading, and there's not a darker pink one. So we do end up using some like trees and stuff. It gets a little bit wacky as we get through this one, but it comes out sort of all right at the end. And I'm using they're the lavenders. The darker spots are the lavender plants. Because they have a more like bluey green to them, and I figured if I could use that and blend that in, then I could create some shading with it. And it's not perfect, but by sizing it up and down, I've been able to almost make a bit of like a gradient for some shading. However, as we move through this, I then sort of figure out another way to make some shading on this that works even more effectively, and I sort of use a combination of both of them. But for now, we're just like filling this in on a very two-dimensional surface. So I'm using these flowers, the white ones, that I've also used to create a little bit of a highlight on the head of the Labubu. And yeah, really, I'm just filling this in. And you can see it ended up, only the face really is the terrain paint at the end of this. And there is a tiny bit of tool mod usage in this just to size some of the plants slightly down for a bit of blending. But here's where I figured that I'd sort of leveled up my technique while doing this, is that I started getting some trees out because the trees were also pink. And once I placed the trees, I realized, oh, they make like a nice drop shadow sort of effect, and I can use these to almost like separate and create even more shading when doing this. So I go a bit overboard with it to begin with, and I tone it down a little bit later on, because this started to look a little bit, as you can see, like it's not blending in with the original pink. It's very separate. And here's the tool mod usage again. I'm just sizing a few down here to blend this drop shadow area into the rest of the pink of the head. But I realized that I could also float things. If to reach the same level as the treetops, I could also just float the plants that are already placed there at the bottom. So I will realize that a little bit later on and use that to do a bit of blending. But here I'm just using some rocks to do the hands. The hands were kind of the worst part. They came out the worst. There was not an easy way for me to do the hands on this sort of scale of the lot and make it look clean. There wasn't any particularly great shapes. I just used rocks to do that. And then this guy's holding like, I think it's like a mini meringue or something. So we are also going to address what that is and try and do something with that in a little bit as well. So originally I started to use some terrain paint, and then it was just looking rubbish. So in the end I decided I would use like just a yellow floor tile and paint that in with that, and then clean up the edges rather than try and paint a whole like macaroon. It's not a macaroon, it's a meringue. Yeah, so now I'm using the original pink ones, and I've realized another like technique that I can do in this is that I can just float these up. And by floating these up, it will also help create a sort of shadow effect the same way the treetops are doing. So using that and the fact that I have these trees, I remove a few of them, I just create all sorts of different levels floating up this original plant to create some 3D effects and sort of like just make it look more like it has shadowing. And does it look like a complete mess when you then look at it from a horizontal view? Absolutely. But we addressed that a little bit more at the end. A bit more shading with this lavender. Okay, so yeah, and this is where I realized that using that original fence to create the mouth, when you zoom out with everything else we've now added on top of this, it wasn't reading at all. It was just like blurring into the face. And the mouth is quite an important thing about these Labubu dolls. So just rearranging the teeth here and using some black stone, really sizing that all the way down, just to get this mouth shape in, and that looks way better. So I've done a bit of a jump cut here where I've done pretty much exactly the same thing with the other face, which is why I didn't record that bit, because it's just me repeating everything I'd done on the first face. But this one's going to be green. So I've got out a different palette of green. And doing this one in green, I think at the end you will see it turns out, I think it's better. It's less 3D, but it's more well shaded. And that's because there's obviously like, most of the plants are green, so I had such a greater variety of palette to choose from in order to actually get some good tones and hues in this one. So I'm using again, this one is the wild grass, which is pretty much the exact same shape as the lavender one that we used in the pink one. But I'm almost using it differently here to almost draw out the shading in a much more cartoony, like line arts sort of style, but weaving this in with this base like grass thing, whatever I'm using, again was able to make these really varied sort of areas of shading to actually like paint this whatever. Is this painting? I don't know what I don't even know what to call this. It's like painting with tiny little objects. I don't know. But you can probably see in the corner there is another green that I have out as well that's also going to be used for some shading. So at the end, this one's going to be a lot more defined, I would say. It almost looks like it's been done in a slightly different cartoon style. And again, I'm using some white flowers here to create some highlights. I think because this one ended up less 3D and I sort of tried to choose plants that all reached the same vertical height, it allowed me to blend in the different plants more easily than I had in the pink ones, where there was only a few pink ones, and so I was limited to how like the height of each of them, so that when I overlapped them they didn't really blend. Whereas in this one the greens are all blending really nicely. So again, this like bush that's a little bit darker has just been amazing for creating shading and really separating like the arms and the body and the head. And again, the ears I could make a lot more neat than I think the pink ones. Not that I don't like the pink one, I do like the pink one as well. But this green one, I think is my favorite one. It's just a lot more like precise. Even like making like these ear shadows using that little like wild grass. Doing the hands again. But yeah, if people like this, I'm totally I'm totally down to do more like this. I maybe like Disney characters or just like anything. Even in my builds, I've started to do a bit more like terrain work. Like I painted some fairy wings in my last little fairy mushroom house thing I did. And surprisingly, this takes me way less time than actually building a house. Maybe it's because I've had experience painting, so it's not really a new thing for me. I don't know. Whereas building a house feels like it has a lot more decision making in it. So this only took me in total, I think, 4 hours to do this. Whereas building a house will take me like so much longer than that. It's crazy. So maybe like I could do a build once a week and a painting once a week. I don't know, but it will depend on if like people actually enjoy watching this kind of thing or not, because I really don't know. I don't know how to gauge that, because I feel like I've not actually seen anyone else do something so completely out of the box like this using the Sims tools. Like but yes, we're just gonna, I realized after they're sort of finished now, these, and I realized that I do actually have to make a park around this and actually make it functional. Well, I didn't have to, but I wanted it to be functional. So I'm just penning them in here with like a little moat sort of thing. And the idea here that I kind of went for was that this is a park and both of the Labubus are two different like park floral garden walks that you can go down. So you can pick like the grass path and go around the pink one, or you can pick, well, it's currently kind of like a concrete path, but I'm going to make it more of a dirt path in a little bit. And then that will take you around the green one. You can just go, you know, your Sims can go as a nice little family day out with the kids or whatever. And the kids get to pick which color Labubu they want to walk around. Or I just thought that was cute. Okay, so jump cut, it's the dirt changed, and here's the floating things that I'm just sort of cheesing this by making them look like trees by putting some pillars there. And that's really all I did. But it doesn't look that bad. It does look like a bit of a mess from the ground, but it doesn't look awful. So we're just going to finish off here and place a few trees around to actually pen this in even more as sort of like an actual functional park. And then there are some other things that I need to add, like all of the things it makes me place to be a valid part, like a chess table, which is stupid. But yes, we will be putting a chess table here. And then I'm like some toilets. I'm going to build some toilets that are sort of more like basement sunk into the ground toilets. But the last thing I'm just going to do here before we take a view in real time is place this hedge around. And then I will populate this and we'll go through and you'll be able to see like things I've added just to finish this off. And here we go. So there's a like children's play area. I've put ducks in everywhere. There's Bonkers Betty sat on a bench. She's a bit hot. I put some swans. There's the horrible chess table that I wish we didn't have to put in, but there we go. And there's even the local town hobo, which just organically turned up to sleep on the bench while needing a shower. So that was nice. Here's the toilets. I didn't want them to be too much, like take too much away from the build, so I just sunk them into the ground. And we'll zoom out here and you can see the Labubus. And this was a weird one, wasn't it? But thank you so much for watching. Be kind to yourselves. And I will see you in the next one.